Okay, hi team, good morning. So, in the first session, I have taken you through the Azure introduction part, what Azure is, what services it provides, how it is beneficial for you, and why an organization, either it's a small scale or a medium scale, why it should move their resources, infrastructures, applications, whatever the workloads they are running to Azure, how it is useful. So today we'll be going into the core part of Azure. We'll be starting with how you implement the services, how you manage the services. So as we move ahead for different session, we'll be concentrating on each and every aspects of services what Azure is having and the Azure is providing. So today we'll be going into the virtual networks. So directly going and publishing or posting or creating a VM and creating all the stuff, storage account, migrating the workload. So it is having its own importance. But okay, suppose for an example I take, suppose you been to an organization and you to the company and you told that you should move to the Azure. But will they? No, they will first see okay what the security is. When we talk about anything moving over the cloud, anything moving over the public network, it is somewhere around the first and the most important is security. So how you can have those security implemented? Now suppose the client can say okay, I do not want to move all my solutions, I want to have a test scenario, I want to have a dev test scenario, then only I can think of it. So he wants to have something moved to Azure, rather all its workload. So he might say I will keep my database on my on-premise, deploy an application, I will test it out. I mean to say hybrid connectivity. So how those things will be set up? So before I go and showcase you how you implement networking, what the client define, how you implement the security so that not the third party or the someone can try to hack into the system or enter into the system, because it's an organization workloads which you are moving to Azure. So rather in today's session we go and see how you make it. I will take you how you should manage according to the client requirements. So today we'll be all going into the planning of virtual networks. If clients say okay, I want this, what scenario, what implementation design you can say to him so that all the demands, all the security terms, it can be fulfilled for the client or the company. So VNet as a component of a service. So in the previous session I have shared with you with the same slide stating what the services Azure provides. So today we'll be focusing on the Microsoft Azure Network Services point. That will be covering three aspects here, that is virtual network, what it is, how to implement this, and we'll be seeing each and every scenarios, how you can integrate it, how you can create that virtual network in the previous session, further coming session. Then I will take you through Traffic Manager. So it is basically a third party integration for Microsoft Azure. It's not its own component or its own software or service, it's a third party integration. So Azure has taken a step integrating Traffic Manager with its portal to provide the services. So we'll look into what Traffic Manager is and how it is useful. And the third is ExpressRoute. So we'll be looking into all the three network services aspects today: virtual networks, Traffic Manager, ExpressRoute, in all the terms of IaaS service, how you can integrate these network services with IaaS, as well as the PaaS service also. Okay, so going ahead, so suppose as I told you want to have a hybrid connectivity, you want to have you'll have a local network, you have a particular database, and you want to deploy or publish your application as a website as a service point of Azure, or either you want to go and have a VM and make a IaaS role installed and you want to deploy, but still you want to have your hybrid connectivity in place, means your database is on local network. Okay, now this was the first scenario. The other scenario, the client may say, I want to have each and everything on the cloud itself. I do not want to have anything on my local network as I am going in a dev test environment. So I am going in a testing phase, make each and everything on Azure itself. So that's a scenario 2. So when we talk about the scenario 2, so there are two aspects. So when the client say, okay, I would like to go and deploy everything on a one cloud service. What one cloud service means? So once you talk about one cloud service, so you already means everyone has must be deployed your VMs, right? So when we deploy 1, 2, 3 multiple services in a one cloud service, it comes up with the same URL what you make it as. So suppose I have a VM eCanary VM test1 which is having a DNS name which is similar to the eCanary VM test2. So here it means that both the VMs are running in one cloud service. So when the VMs or the workloads or even the PaaS services, when they are running in one cloud service, it means they would be able to connect to each other. If a VM running in same cloud service, they can ping each other, they can communicate each other. But what about the scenario to second point? If the customer say, okay, I want it to be deployed in two different cloud service. So what the use of cloud service is, how cloud service plays a role here? Okay, suppose I have my 1 or 2 VM. Suppose I have eCanary VM test1, eCanary VM test2. So I have some application, I do not want IP address allocating management. I do not want that there should be a name resolution communication would be there. So once you make a workload set on a same cloud service, it means you cannot say that, okay boss, I want this VM with a 10 series of IP, I want this VM with a 172 series of IP. No, you cannot define. This will Azure make, okay, I will make sure that these two cloud services should be communicating. But what IP I would be getting, you would be getting, I would not able to manage those things. The other way around. What DNS name resolution you want to make to do different or 3 different, that also I will not take guarantee. Means putting a VM in a same cloud service, it only makes you communicate, nothing else you can do. But
is there any limitations?
No, there is no limitations.
Any number?
No, there is no limitation. You can put as much of VM into a one cloud service.
Does the cloud service share the same network?
Yeah, I will take you. There's in the further slide, next slide itself. So I will take you how it communicates and how it binds the IP and all. There is a different talk. Okay. So when the VMs are in same cloud service, you can see that the VMs communicate with each other. Now suppose I am going to the different cloud service. So will my VM would be able to communicate? Without a VM, till now I am talking only the scenarios. I have not come up with a VNet connectivity till now. Within two cloud services, can I able to ping the VM? So their answer would be no, but yes, it is possible. Without a VNet also, you can make the VM ping and communicate with each other. So how is it possible? So the same demo I would take you in the next session, how it is. You can have a 2 different cloud service communicate, but there also will be coming with a limitation. It talks on an endpoints basis. It is not on a VNet basis. We'll be defining both the VM being a different cloud service. We'll be configuring on a load balancer with the same VNet, same endpoint. So that also is the way that your VM can, but still that you cannot have a IP in action. You cannot have a DNS in action, which is mandatory. Why DNS came into scenario? Why Microsoft or any vendor come up with DNS? Because remembering an IP for each and every computer or a service or a whatever we were deployed is not possible. So we come up with a name resolution saying that okay, this is a VM running on 10.0.0.1. So I can say, okay, this VM is my sample test 1. So I can know, okay, this sample test 1 I have to communicate, rather knowing the IP. So now, as I talked about the first scenario, that is hybrid connectivity. So when I talk about hybrid connectivity, so you have to come up with something said to be as a VPN. So there are three aspects. Suppose you want to have your hybrid connectivity, so either you bring up with a P2S connectivity, or you come up with a site-to-site connectivity, or third way around is you should have an express route. So this is something. So once you prefer for a hybrid connectivity, anyway the VNet plays an important role. So that's why either you are going only on cloud, or you are making an Azure services with hybrid connectivity, or you want to deploy into different cloud service or same services, means VNet plays its important role. It has its important role. So now we'll be seeing what VNet is and how it makes itself beneficial. So as I talked, the first feature if we talk about is cloud services and virtual machine. So as I already told, when we talk about cloud services and virtual machine, if the VMs or the services or a PaaS services what you develop, suppose website as a service, or if you deployed any of the web application, if they are put into a same cloud service, so they would be able to communicate. Even the VMs, if they are placed in the same cloud service, they would be able to communicate with each other. So I will show you a pretty simple demo where you can identify that, as I shown you, right, these two VMs are running into the same cloud service. So I will connect to both the VMs. And I will connect to the other VM also. So to make you sure, so if I go in any of the VM and check in on configuration, so I do not find any of the network attached here. If there would be any network, the VM automatically says that, okay, I have a network. Suppose I will take you to any different VM having in my subscription. So this is having a VNet. So you can see it is saying that, okay, I have a virtual network. But here in this case, I do not have any virtual network attached to this VM, and still here also I do not have any virtual network attached to this VM. So now I am able to connect to both the VMs. And now, so both the VMs do not have a network connectivity. There is no VNet attached. So I will try to ping my another VM. So you can see that I am able to get the response. And the same if I go and check with it with the other VM. So from here itself I am able to ping, means it proves that a VM deployed in same cloud service can ping each other. So now moving ahead, so cloud services and virtual machine is simple, straightforward. If you don't want to manage your IP, don't want to know what DNS or it should be there, so you can go with that. Now the thing is IP address. So coming up with VNet action, so once you deploy any of the VM, so those VMs come up with two IP. So once you deploy a VM, one is DIP, that is nothing but dynamic internal IP address each and every VM gets, and the other, it gets a VIP, that is nothing but a virtual IP address. So if I take you through the same VM, so suppose I will take you through VNet eCanary VM test 1, and Azure has a good option that in desktop it gives what it is getting. So what internal IP it is getting? It is getting 100.77.172.81. So it is a dynamic internal IP address. So you are all aware of Hyper-V, right? So each and every Hyper-V, there are 3 switches: internal, external and private. So what internal basically do? It makes you communicate internally. It only makes you communicate to the VMs having on that particular internal NIC card. So the same way here also VM provides an internal IP address. So once you make it in a cloud service, it is mean those VMs are getting deployed on the internal NIC of that cloud service, of that VM. So that's why n number of VMs placed in one cloud service, using these internal IP range, they ping to each other. So now if I take you through the other VM which we were able to ping, so if you check its DIP, so it is coming up with the 100.77.150.165 having a subnet of 16 255.255.0.0. So that is the reason both the VMs are able to ping each other in the cloud service. It's not like that they are pinging and Azure has something made. So this is the reason DIP plays an action. So whatever be the cloud service, either cloud service A or cloud service B, cloud service C, every VM or a service, PaaS service you deploy, it comes up with a DIP. So now what a virtual IP is? So virtual IP is your public IP what Azure gives to each of your VM, and this IP itself is used to talk with the external network. So this is if someone wants to have a communication from outside. So one cloud service and another cloud service. So other cloud service is an external client for the existing cloud service. So that VIP, virtual IP, makes that communicate. It is nothing but your external IP. But I will show you something. So these two VMs are deployed in the same cloud service. Now check its public IP. 168.63.164.59. So what the public IP would be for the other cloud service VM? It is same. 168. One second. So it is same. So is it same for all the cloud service? No. This external IP is same only for one cloud service. Means you can directly say a cloud service itself gets a public IP, not a VM. Basically in Azure terms, they provide IP to the cloud service. So that is the public IP it is being utilized for each and every. So whenever you are talking to an external client, so this internal IP does not play any role. This public IP plays a role in communicating with an outside client. So even if you are going with an hybrid connectivity, so every time it talks, it makes it communicate with the public IP sitting over this internal IP.
So what is the core of internal IP when we have public IP?
So when you do your hybrid connectivity, so in previous further the next slide there is an answer for your question. So is it clear, right? Now the third option, if we see, it is static IP addresses. So you all must be aware that what static IP is. Now suppose if I talk about my on-premise network, so okay, I have my AD, I'm going to create my domain controller, or I want to have my DNS means implemented. So whenever you are talk about AD or DNS, at least they should have a static IP. Why is it so? Because suppose if I have a DHCP running and if I shut down the system, you know that lease has been released, right? DHCP follows a lease rule, right? suppose if for this system I have given an IP, so I have given a lease saying that okay, you have this IP for this amount of time. But when I talk on Azure, so this public IP, DIP or VIP, whatever you are, these internal IP is provided by DHCP. VIP is not provided by DHCP. So these DIPs are provided by DHCP, and the good thing about is they do not have lease. They have infinite lease on Azure VM. So still there is a chance. Still Azure does not guarantee. It says that okay, it's an infinite lease, you will be getting this and only this IP. Now suppose, so when you shut down your VM from Azure portal, it gets deallocated, and when you shut down it from RDP, you would have seen if I shut down from here, so still I would be charged because that VM is only stopped. You can visualize once I shut down from RDP, so here in Azure portal it would be showing me that I am stopped. This deallocated would not be there, means this has only been stopped, this has not been removed from the server. What deallocated means, I remove a VHD and I am not keeping that VHD on that server. So that's why you are not being charged. So once you say to Azure portal that start this VM, it again takes that VHD and place it any of the feasible racks or server which are vacant and make you service. But when you do on RDP, it is like you are still computing. It has not been removed from the server. So suppose in that case, once you shut down and stop its deallocate, there might be a chance that your IP would be released and it would have been provided to someone else. So Azure says that for those kind of scenarios you can go with static IP addressing. But how you make it? So pretty simple. It was previously 2 months ago. It was that you have to use Azure PowerShell to make your IP static for a particular VM. Means once you either it's deallocated anything, whenever if a static IP, so that VM would be having that static IP itself. So but at the introduction of preview portal, you can directly from here reserve an IP, I mean provide the static IP. No need of now doing PowerShell and making the VM and having it a static IP. So simply you go to VM, all settings, IP addresses, select static and provide the address space you want and save it, and it would be automatically put in a static IP range. Yeah, for static IP if you are opting for, you will be charged extra. Yeah, you would be charged an extra amount. So what is static IP? Now what is a reserved IP then? In a static IP also I said to the VM that okay, this is the IP you would be getting. I have fixed a IP for you. What is a reserved IP? So here reserved IP is, suppose what happens normally, I have given a static IP and I have shut down the VM, and when I restart, suppose I have done a static IP for 10.0.0.4. okay, now what happens? Now suppose that particular VM I done again dynamic, so that IP is released, right? Now if that IP has been given to any other VM 10.0.0.4, so that it is not possible because it is running on now different IP. So reserve IP means please reserve this particular slot or this IP for me. Please do not give to any other VM till I say you. Means you have sold that okay 10.0.0.4, still I am not using it, I am not providing this IP to the VM, or I have provided, but please make it reserved because I might need it in future. So still for reserving a IP you require a PowerShell command and you have to implement for that particular VM and it will be done.
Okay, one more question. Let us say there is a very less credits and we get something called as stopped and deallocated.
Okay.
So at that time, is the reserved IP address also be released?
No, once you are you do not have a subscription. You say you're unable to use.
Use it.
But Azure is not like that. Okay, if you are not using, so I will remove all your policies, whatever you have been implemented. Your policies still exist. Okay, if you are told that this is my reserved IP, either you are not paying for that, but still you are going with a subscription. So Azure does not. So you can say that okay, I have made 2 days late payment. So why you have a? You take your phone subscriber, they disconnect the service, but they do not remove your connection. Okay, you only can shout at what service it is. There is an issue, that's why I do not make to pay. The same way, it do not remove your policy what you have said. What is instance level public IP address? So suppose I am trying to upload something on Azure application or a VM or a PaaS service using an FTP server. So when you talk about FTP, how it works, it takes your DIP, it takes your VIP, virtual IP address. So this virtual IP handles the external data. Okay, so you are uploading, so that VM is receiving some internal traffic. So that receiving internal traffic, it is managed by the endpoint. So whatever endpoints you set, so they only manage your internal traffic, not the external traffic. If you have any doubt, you can ask questions, everyone, because it might be a little bit confusing. So endpoints what you create, it only manages your internal traffic.
So this is what you said at the starting.
Yeah.
We'll be showcasing the communication between 2 virtual machines by using
Yeah.
instance levels.
So we will make sure that these internal should, for another cloud service, both should have an internal communication. So suppose FTP is coming with saying that okay, I have a public IP for your VM which is managing the FTP workload, FTP uploads, and that VM is working with an internal endpoint to receive that incoming traffic. So now what happens, that endpoint which I have opened is getting to know from what IP address I am coming with. Okay, so suppose you want to something, you are uploading something very secure and something very secure, that you cannot want to show that VM from what IP, because if hacker anyhow get into the Azure, because there is possibilities, because there is nothing fixed there. We can say that 99.99, but it is not sure. So still there is chance that says something can happen. To make sure that endpoint do not know from what IP you are coming, we came up with instance level public IP address, saying that if you want to run a FTP in a passive mode, then do not worry. Using PowerShell, provide that VM a instance level public IP. What that instance when FTP would be pushing. So there is a couple of commands you have to. I can give you those commands are there. Once you publish, so at what instance you want to run. So once you fix that instance and say to Azure, okay, whenever I am doing something with FTP, please remove your endpoint in an action and use this IP itself for incoming and outgoing traffic both.
So here I'll be comparing FTP's endpoints.
Yeah, not you would not only FTP 21 endpoint you can remove, and still you would see without opening that endpoint you would be able to communicate. That is an instance level, because once this VIP is used, that 21 knows that I am getting from this VIP. So you would not want to know that 21 port that from what IP I am coming with, because it is easy to get into the port rather than it's very tough to get into an IP. Getting into a port is because each and every VM has the same port. As I told, if 2 different cloud service and if I do VIP and endpoint mapping, still I can communicate without a VNet. So that is the reason instance level public IP plays an important role. Now what are DNS in Azure? So DNS, there is a different or separate slide where I will talk about DNS. So DNS is simple. If you, as I told, if you want to have a name resolution scenario for a specific VM, so how it is, so there is 5 scenarios I will be sharing you in my last slide. So where you can say where you want to bring up your own DNS and how Azure provides an internal DNS server. The next is Azure Load Balancer and internal load balancer. What it is? So as the term defines, load balancer, it's something, right? You are having same application running in 1, 2, 3 or multiple services, I mean VM or web application, and above that you create a load balance. Means if a traffic is coming, rather going directly into each VM, it hits on that load balancer, and that load balancer distributes the traffic according to the logic you opt for and by default what Azure is having. So in Azure you can have an Azure load balancer, or in other words we can say it as internal load balancer in a single cloud service itself. We cannot set a load balancer for two different cloud services. Azure tried its best but it was not able to. There is a test case also I can share you. They tried when they were going with an infrastructure build. They tried a lot, but when they were going with an load balancing for within two different cloud service, so there was a error they were experiencing due to this DIP and VIP concept. So not moving into that case, it's like, so that's why Azure come up with only load balancing. If you want to do, the workload should be into cloud service. That is the reason they had tie-up with Traffic Manager. What Traffic Manager is, if you want to do failover, if you want to do load balancing, if you want to do load balancing in different region, different cloud service, whatever it is, Traffic Manager makes it possible. So that's why Azure had a tie-up and accepted its service. So once you see, if you have any third-party integration, you find every third party into the marketplace of Azure rather than a service point of view. But when you look into Azure portal, it comes with the Azure service itself. So that is the reason. So I will take in next session, in session 3, about Traffic Manager and what all it provides. So you want to load balance in different region, you can use Traffic Manager. So now suppose I have something published in Southeast Asia and something for this. So everyone around the world is hitting in Southeast Asia, right? So this is round robin scenario, everyone hitting in Southeast Asia. So for user accessing from East US or US region, they will have some latency. So what I can do, I can deploy the same instance on East US, and I can say to Traffic Manager that okay, if you are getting a request from US, so put them into the East US. Then there is a failover. Suppose one VM, one instance fell down, how you can start and work with other instance. So Traffic Manager plays an important role in terms of cloud service as well as your past scenarios also. So if I show you Azure Load Balancer, Traffic Manager I would show you next session as I told. In Azure Load Balancer, so if I take you through the portal, so how you create a load balance set. So suppose here I have two VM, eCanary VM Web App 1 which is running in Japanese, the same eCanary VM WJE running in Japanese. So how? So you can see something eCanary load balance set I have created. How you create this? Suppose when I go and add an endpoint, I have two VMs running in same cloud service. The simply you have to do, add a standalone endpoint, go next, select specific endpoint. For example, I can select PowerShell or like that, anything you want to load balance, protocol, public port and private port, and you have to check this often, create a load balance set. So once you create this load balance set and click next, so till you have did not come up with check this option, Azure says okay and you can implement. Once I checked it, so it comes up with suppose I will give something SMTP and port and all. So it says provide a set name and what proto means on what port you want to have this, and load balancer means what probe internal should be there, means every 15 seconds you should divert the traffic. So by this you create the set, and once its set is created, it would like something like this. Once you go to different VM, running on the same cloud service, once you go and try to add the endpoint, so once you add that load balance set, you would be, currently there is no load balance set, so you would be able to select this and you can select this load balance set. And if you want to configure and probe it this particular cloud service for this particular VM, suppose you want to send the setting that okay, from there it should come with 25 port, but here it should listen on 26 port. Let it be the same load balance, but you can have a different port numbers or probe settings also. So in this way you create a set a load balancing.
So there was something called as protocol and probe protocol, right?
Okay.
So if I change probe protocol,
Okay.
does it change the protocol?
No, here
No.
it does not.
So I can have
You can have a
different
two
probe.
different probes, because it is not like okay, same port should be open, because it is 25. It is creating in its own set now. So its own set have n variety of
So it is
ports.
It is like a protocol within a protocol.
Yes, that's what I told. Cloud service, you have two VMs or two apps, have a load balance set. So this is having something. So here you are configuring. You are configuring in VM1. You are configuring your port. Okay, now it is hitting on it is going. So that itself has a some. Now you can change your public port and private port, right? Here it is not mandatory both to be the same thing. So now the last option is regional VNet. So it has been demolished nowadays. So still I will take you, because if you are running Azure from last 2 years and in recent 1 year you are using the same VNet, so that VNet is regional VNet. Nowadays if you create a new VNet, it is not a regional VNet. So I talked about in session 1 something about affinity groups, right? So what that affinity group is, okay, it tries to place your resources in the first 3 server itself. So previously when you create a VNet, so those VNets was automatically put into an affinity group. So Azure made sure that it should be placed in 1, 2nd or 3rd server itself. So you would able to communicate in that aspects only. If still you want to go with 4, 5, 6 servers, you have to integrate VNet and all other concepts. Means it's like 2 different cloud service what we usually do today. So that time it was. So nowadays it's like you create a VNet nowhere around the 23 data center you create. So now they are trying to migrate all the regional VNets to the new scenario. So it is taking time to upgrade. So in coming 1 or 2 months they will be changing all the regional VNet what they are pushing in configuration file to those VNet, and it will be like a VNet. So it was previously used, now it is no more used. Okay.
So regional VNet is only for a particular region?
No. Suppose I have my things deployed here, so I can have a VNet deployed in East West or Southeast Asia. I can have my VNet deployed in East West. I can use it. So that's why it is not specific to a region. Previously it was that if you are deploying your resources, it should be in a Southeast Asia itself, but now it is not.
No. In the regional VNet, I mean, not the present scenario.
Okay.
You said 2 years back
Okay.
scenario. In that scenario, regional VNet means is only for particular.
There was
region.
not a regional term itself. It was a term that still there was a VNet itself. But there is a difference between a VNet you created 1 year ago and the VNet you create now. The VNet you created 1 year ago, it was like it was only able to communicate on 3 servers. Means you have to mandatory put that VNet in an affinity group. And what affinity group that I will be make sure that you should make communicate and placed on first 3 servers or racks. But now it is not like that. VNet means it spans entire region. It spans around the 1,000 servers having in those regions, rather bounding. So now they are coming with new VNet. So they have given those old VNet as this has capability. So no, okay, those customers are using regional VNet. So that is the reason they are not able to communicate. So that's the thing. So now I will talk about hybrid scenario now. So altogether I have shown you, and if you have a VNet connectivity, you can able to ping your and have a communication within a cloud within different cloud service. So if you have a VNet configure and you give the same VNet to two different cloud service VMs, so they will communicate. So what? Once you create a VNet, you all have created a VNet and you have given a defined range. Okay, you should communicate. You should go with these address spaces. So these address spaces. So once you create these address spaces, so suppose I will take you through one VM. So where I have a already VNet configured. So if I will connect this VM, so here I have defined my own address spaces. So to let them communicate, that VNet is used. So I have a VNet, suppose I have an eCanary VNet and I have given that VNet to both the VMs running on two different cloud servers. Okay, so I have told both the VMs that now you should go with your internal IPS 10.0.0.4. Rather asking the IP, I have given the address space IP to the VM, and that IP is being utilized now to communicate. So you can see now the range I decided, that range is provided as an internal IP. So to verify, if I go and check on the VNet and if I go and check on configure, so you can see it is running on 10.10.0.0. So now giving a VNet, you can manage your IP addresses, which was not possible when Azure gives you a own internal IP address.
So what is that CIDP over in BART 27? Is it the range which is like 0 to 27?
No, I didn't get
Subnet.
that. I will show you. Next slide it is. I will go into subnets. So this was regarding VNet. Now you want to have a hybrid connectivity. So there are three options, as I told: point to site, site to site, and VNet to VNet, and one express route, and other is also, which is a part of hybrid itself, but creating hybrid on Azure. So that is VNet to VNet VPN. So what is point to site? Point to site, where you plan whenever, suppose there is a one system sitting on your on-premise, you want to communicate only that system to Azure. You create and implement point to site. Means if you want to connect one system, you have to configure the system for connecting to Azure. If you have another system, you have to configure that system also to connect to Azure. So it is dependent on system. You have to go and configure it on each and every system. But when I talk about H2S, so in P2S there is no gateway required, nothing else. Only simple, you can go and you can deploy and you can have it. But when I talk about H2S, it requires your local network space. So what is basically do, once you provide a local network space and you select an Azure VNet with an Azure address space, it maps it. It sits over the local address space and it creates a gateway. So that gateway is utilized on the on-premises to communicate. So once you create site to site, no need, it's not a system dependency. Means if you are given the 10 series local network, then it can able to communicate with all the entire on-premise network. So that is H2S. Express route, so it is coming up recently, so it is in only 2 regions, and in India it is coming up. So it's like you create a direct connectivity, which is a secured. You should be having your own private connectivity. It does not runs above the internet. P2S required an internet connectivity, but once setting up the communication, it uses the secure channel of VPN. The same with H2S. But express route, you talk with your internal ISPs, you make the express route work, because it is what ISP provides, and ISP will set up a direct connection to your company or the organization, via wired medium, and you can have a direct connectivity, so it does not uses the internet. Now suppose you want to have a communication between a server running on your one subscription, and I have two subscription. I want to communicate. I both the subscription have a VNet with a VM. I want to communicate. There comes as a VNet to VNet VPN. Means if two VNets are the two subscription, you want to communicate, so VNet to VNet VPN plays a role. So how you configure it? So when I talk about site to site, so what you do, site to site, you create a local address space of your local network, and you take a Azure address space and you map it, and that gateway, you have a VPN gateway that is your public IP. So, and Azure creates its virtual gateway. Okay, these four options you give to Azure, and then the communication is made. But how VNet to VNet work, because both subscription are Azure. Suppose I have one subscription of myself and I have another subscription of Nagraj. So I want to communicate my subscription VM to Nagraj subscription VM. So there comes VNet to VNet VPN. So what I will do, I have my VNet in one address space, and Nagraj subscription has one VNet with its own address space. Okay, so here on my subscription I will create one virtual gateway. On the Nagraj subscription I will create one virtual gateway. So now Nagraj had its own local IP and virtual gateway. I also have my local VNet Azure address space and virtual gateway. So while I configure this, I will show you in next session, VNet to VNet. So while I configure on my gateway, I will use Nagraj local address space, and on its local address space I will use my gateway, which sets a connectivity. So this is VNet to VNet VPN between Azure VNet to VNet or two different subscriptions.
So there is a security lapse, right? When VNet to VNet.
How there is security
Let us
lapse?
say, as you gave an example, you have two different subscriptions, right? And you can access this subscription now because of VNet to VNet. A particular machine.
He wants it, so you have to give me, right? He wants, anyways, no need of giving community subscription. Okay, he will set it gateway and local network, but still he wants to communicate, he will share something to me, right? Still I can access it VM. So what's it not going into or going into a subscription does not make sense.
Okay. What is required to connect between two VNets?
Yeah, here no VPN device, nothing. Only you require your subscription, I require my subscription. That's it. Subscription name, username and password. That's it. Nothing else. As we log on, right? So while configuring, I will be having two subscription placed in it. That's it.
So indirectly we are giving our credentials to the third party.
So once the communication is set, still you can change the subscription later.
So
you
can
change
I-
the password.
Okay. Let us say, okay, I'll give the credentials. So can I make you, so can I restrict him for using some of the services in Azure?
You want to restrict him to
Access yours.
yes, you can. If you have a AD placed in your, if you have an Active Directory or by rights management, you can restrict. Okay, so now we'll move to the next slide. So Azure, so what private IPs are? So private IP is something which is not able to move to internet, or which cannot communicate with internet. So Azure itself use the private IPs. So once you create a VNet, so you would be able to have, because Azure itself using other ranges for its public IP address. So 10.0.0.0/8 means here you have the IP range 10.0.0.1 to 10.0.0.255. So this means 8. /8 means 255.0.0.0 subnet I am going with.
So just put it for okay.
Yeah. 172.16.0.0./12 means this range is 172.16.0.0.12 to 172.31 to 255 to 255. So here you will be getting all those range. Now talking about the third, what you can have 192.168.0.0/16. So it is 192.168.0.0. to 192.168.255.255 you would be getting. So once you calculate according to the subnet, so these all address space you would be getting. So now there is a concept of subnet. When you create a VNet, so there comes with a subnet. Okay, within that address space you define, you can have a subnet 1, subnet 2, subnet 3. What subnet 1, subnet 2 is? So suppose I have 100 IP, for 100 IP I have created my, I have told that this VNet should give 1 to 100 IP. So now suppose I have some SQL database running, I have some .NET application running. So I can create a subnet 1 saying that you can take only 1 to 50 and 50 to 100 I will give to other subnet. Means subnet and 1 I can use to SQL databases. When I am giving connection VNet to SQL, I will say that okay, you use this subnet. So once you see in the portal, you come up with an option what subnet it is with. So I am with a subnet 1, so DB can get the address range you define, and then application can get those IP, the range you define. And the other thing you must have all observed, okay, suppose you have given 10.0.0.0 to 10.0.0.10, but the first IP which the VM get is 10.0.0.4 or 3 if you have started with 0 or 1. Why? Because Azure reserves first 3 IP. You can, for what it is reserving? For all this communication, it is reserving all the IP. It is making your VNet to work with other VNet, right? So using that VNet, first 3 IP do mapping. So it's another different chapter. And the smallest subnet you can choose is of 29 bit. If once you go and create VNets, I will show you after. I will go with one more slide, and after I will show you one demo creating a VNet, where you can see the smallest subnet you can select is 29, where you would be coming up with only 8 IP addresses. And as I talked about static internal IP address on the VNet level itself, you can give it. So finally coming with the last slide, that is DNS, as I talked about. So now I think about the VNet, how it communicates, what is DIP, what is virtual IP, how it makes you communicate with one cloud service to another cloud service, how it makes you communicate within the cloud service, because everyone knows that you can communicate, but how it is happening, I think now everyone is clear about this. So now I will talk about how DNS plays in. So there is 2 kinds of DNS being used in Azure. One is Azure have its own DNS server. In some scenarios Azure makes sure that you can communicate, but there are scenarios where you have to implement your own DNS to communicate, because Azure does not know. There is a reason. Azure itself made you communicate all the scenarios, but there is a reason, we'll see. So suppose there is a scenario between VMs placed in a same cloud service. So as I told, it gives the DIP, internal IP, okay, distributed internal IP, what it gives, I mean dynamic internal IP, what it gives. So it is having in a one cloud service, for every VM it is different. Okay, so Azure has given that IP. So Azure know what its name is using that IP. So Azure makes it so that if your VMs are placed in one cloud service, I take guarantee I will use my own DNS server and make it communicate. Between role instances of VM, you define address spaces. First 3 IPs are reserved. So for those communication, that those 3 IPs are reserved. There also Azure knows that where are my VNet attached and what is the name. So that's why if the VNet are placed in 2 different cloud service or VMs, still they are communicating with name resolution, because Azure knows that okay, I have to ping this cloud service to other cloud service. Between VMs or role instances and on-premises computers, okay, Azure can take DNS communicate on its network, but how the Azure will know that what machines you are running on your on-premise? So here comes that you have to come up with your own DNS place. So even on-premise DNS, if you are integrating with Azure, on-premise DNS don't know that what all workloads are running on your Azure. Once you set up a VPN connectivity, S2S, P2S, VNet to VNet or Express Route, you should give entries to your DNS server for Azure VMs and cloud service saying that boss, you have to ping now also these VMs running on Azure also. Between VNets, different VNet, I mean VNet to VNet, what I talked about. Here also I have two different subscription. I don't know what, because I'm mapping, I am doing VNet to VNet connectivity but a VPN, right? So still that other account I do not know that what all workloads are running and what all I have to ping and I want to communicate, because I am VPN. What VPN does basically, VPN only makes a secure channel, nothing else it does. So still if VNet to VNet for two different subscription or two different VNets, you require your own DNS to be placed. And the final one, so as I told, you can communicate, as I shown you, right? You can communicate without a VNet to do different cloud service using your endpoints also, using the VIPs. VIP being an external traffic and your endpoint being an internal traffic. Without a VNet also you can communicate. The same way, without a VNet also or an S2S also, you can communicate with your on-premise computers to an Azure VM. But there also it comes up with a public endpoint which you have to open on your on-premise. So there comes a scenario, okay, I want to communicate my on-premise VM to an Azure VM. I don't want to go for S2S, do not want to go for Express Route, nothing else. So as VM to VM place, so you should have your public IP at least. So once you give that public IP, we map that public IP to that VM specific endpoints.
So your public IP can be static or dynamic. Or
If you talk about static or dynamic, it should be static. Because if that's changed, because I mapped that public IP with this specific endpoint, okay, every time you have to allow, this endpoint should allow this particular public IP. So once it's changed, so it should not be the communication loss. And never try to give static IP. The way you give in on-premise VM, you log on and do NACPL and right click and set the properties. If you go and you do it on the VNet, if you go and do it on a VM, you will lose your connectivity, because that is now it is being authorized. So it is all about so this is all about the VNet what we talked about today. So before I end up with this session, I will take you through the basic creation of VNets. So are you all able to view the screen? I think I lost the connection. Okay. So okay, due to lack of time, I will show you all the demo as I discussed, right? All the demos, P2S, S2S. So next session would be